Ladies and gentlemen, welcome on back. In this one today, we're going to be taking a look back at what I believe is the most overrated game in all of zombies, Black Ops 1. I know a lot of you are going to give me a ton of hate for this one, so before we start, please leave a like, it helps out the channel a ton, and remember, just because I'm saying Black Ops 1 Zombies is overrated doesn't mean that I hate the game. In fact, I love Black Ops 1, but there are so many people who give this game too much credit. So with all that out of the way with, let's get right into it. I first want to talk about the maps in Black Ops 1. I've seen a ton of tier lists from other people in the community, not to call anyone out, but for some reason they love putting Black Ops 1 maps in the top 10, sometimes even in the top 3, which I fully disagree with. And that's not to say that Black Ops 1 has bad maps, but a good majority of them are mid. 5 is probably the worst in this game, and compared to other zombie maps, 5 is below average at best. Even if you take the best map in Black Ops 1, which most would agree is Call of the Dead, and compare it to other zombie maps, it doesn't really even compete in the top 10 at all. Yet I've seen so many people, which again, not to call anyone out, who put this map in their top 3. And then what's even worse is the Keener to Toten fanboys. They've kind of become a meme at this point, but to these guys, they believe that Keener to Toten is quite literally the greatest zombie map of all time, which is definitely not true. Kino fanboys come in two different flavors. The first and most common is the guy who plays zombies once a month for 2 hours, and all they do is kill zombies until they get to about round 20 or 30, which from a casual perspective, I can understand why Kino is their favorite, because they probably haven't played any of the other maps or games. The second type of Kino fanboy is the one who's more rare. They started playing zombies on Kino, and they become so blinded to that nostalgia that they are unwilling to admit that there are better maps. Again, not calling anyone out. And then there's that one word which perfectly describes Black Ops 1 zombies: nostalgia. Nostalgia is the key component that keeps people loving this game. The majority of Zombies fans started off on Keener to Toten, and I can understand why a lot of people give that map a lot of respect. But just because something was your first doesn't mean it should be the best. For example, my first map that I ever played was Black Ops 2's Transit, but you don't see me coming out and saying that Transit is the best map ever because it got me into zombies. But what I will say is that I respect Transit. Jimmy Zielinski was way ahead of his time, and he had a ton of ideas for this map. But because of hardware limitations, he couldn't bring many of those ideas to fruition. And even though the map completely flopped in the end, I still have respect for Jimmy Zielinski biting that bullet and trying to develop those ideas, knowing that the project would most likely fail. It's something you don't really see anymore in gaming. The most productive route, instead of making Transit, would be to copy and paste another map like Keener to Toten, since it saves money and time and is proven to be really successful. But Jimmy Zielinski followed his passion, and even though Transit ended up being a god-awful map, I hold a lot of respect for it. Moral of the story, just because you have respect for something doesn't mean you should love it to death or idolize it above all else. I think that's how we should treat a lot of these older games like Black Ops 1. We shouldn't idolize these maps and say that they're the best maps ever made, because that's not true. The game mode has evolved over so many years, and in the coming years, we would get maps like Origins, Shadows of Evil, and Horizon Drac, which take the Black Ops 1 formula for maps and improves upon it by adding Easter eggs, story, and wonder weapons. And this brings me to my next point, and that's the gameplay for Black Ops 1. I think it's incredibly overrated. A lot of people say that Black Ops 1 has some of the best zombie mechanics, and killing zombies in this game is super fun, and while I do find Black Ops 1 to have overall good mechanics, I don't think it has some of the best. For example, the guns in this game suck. They didn't properly adjust the ammo for any of the guns when carrying them over from multiplayer, so all of them ran out of bullets in less than a few minutes. The firepower for these weapons was also really lackluster. You had Pack-a-Punch, which helped a bit, but you didn't have Double Tap 2, which made every gun in this game practically useless past round 20. One thing I will give this game some credit for is that some of the wonder weapons are really solid. Notice how I said some, because wonder weapons like the Thunder Gun, the Baby Gun, and the Wave Gun are all super effective and incredibly iconic. But then you have the Ray Gun, the Winter's Howl, the Scavenger, and the VR-11, which all suck. The VR-11 and the Winter's Howl are some of the worst wonder weapons ever, and the Scavenger, although fun to use, was completely useless in the late 40s. Not only did a lot of the wonder weapons suffer in this game, but so did the mini-bosses. In World at War, we had the Hellhounds, and they were adored by fans and are still to this day the most iconic zombies mini-boss. In Black Ops 1, however, they added in one of the most notorious mini-bosses, the Nova Crawlers. They were on a ton of maps like 5, Kino, and Moon, and they were extremely annoying to deal with. What made them somewhat manageable was that they would only spawn in certain areas on those maps. So for 5, for example, they would only spawn on the lower level, and on Moon, they would only spawn in the lab. Making the Nova Crawlers spawn only in certain areas only made me hate said areas. I mean, think about it. When playing 5, did you stay at the bottom floor for long periods of time? Or on Moon, did you ever want to camp in the laboratory? No, and that is mainly because of these guys. Even on Kino, which is the only map where Nova Crawlers are somewhat manageable, they are heavily despised. Heck, the new high round strategy for this map is to camp in the alleyway where they don't even spawn. And don't even get me started with Moon. Not only does the zero gravity make it hard to navigate around these guys, but they also teleport, so you have to constantly be worried about them spawning right on top of you. On top of all of that, you also have to worry about the Moon Man creeping up behind you and stealing your jug. But you know what's even worse than the Nova Crawlers or the Spaceman? It's the monkeys on Ascension. They are immune to the Thunder Gun, they throw grenades back at you, and they steal your perks. They are super annoying and they discourage me from buying more than 2 perks whenever I play on Ascension. The only mini-bosses in this game that I somewhat respect are George Romero, the Napalm, the Shriekers, and the monkeys on Shangri-La. While these mini-bosses may have some cool mechanics and are fairly unique, compared to other mini-bosses in zombies, they aren't that great. George Romero is really hard to take down, but he rewards you greatly if you can. This makes him an adored mini-boss in the eyes of hardcore players, but to casuals, which is who this game appeals to, he can be really overwhelming. Same goes for the Napalm, Shriekers, and Shang Monkeys. If you know how their mechanics work, they can be fun for the hardcore players, but if you don't, they can be somewhat annoying to deal with. I'm starting to go on a tangent, so I'll wrap up the video by saying this. I respect Black Ops 1. I wouldn't be here right now trashing this game if it wasn't for how successful it was. It was most people's first zombies game, and it's what kickstarted zombies into the golden era. However, just because I respect Black Ops 1 doesn't mean that I love it or think it's one of the best games of all time. There are a lot of problems in Black Ops 1 Zombies that people skip over when it comes to discussing this game because they're either blinded by nostalgia or they follow the people who are blinded by nostalgia. And that is why Black Ops 1 Zombies is the most overrated game. Anyways, guys, it's going to wrap up the video for today. If you did enjoy, leave a like, subscribe, do all that. So leave your comments down below if you want to see me do any other type of content. Check down the description as well for more zombie-related videos. And yeah, I got nothing much else to say, so peace.